wrong with me? I was dehydrated.
All right, welcome to the Deacon Daryl Show, community health and wellness show, recorded here live at the KYCN Radio studio here at the church at Victorville, California. I'd like to thank you guys for listening in today. We got a pretty important topic that we want to cover today, something that's it's touching everybody's lives in the high desert right now, not just the kids, not just the adults, but everybody who's residing here in the high desert, everybody who's visiting the high desert. And we're talking about the violence, the recent deaths, the recent crime rise that we've been seeing here in the high desert. And I'm going to introduce my guests now, some brothers that we have in here that want to help figure out some solutions. We're tired of talking about it. We're tired of giving opinions. We're tired of hearing opinions. But at this point, we need to start coming up with solutions and suggestions more than just pointing fingers and requesting more police officers, because the problem is much deeper than that, than just having more law enforcement. So I'm going to introduce from right to left. We got Elder YAH, Apostle YAH from the church at Victorville. Welcome to the show, brother.
Welcome.
We got Coach Donald Porter from the mighty HD Ducks. I'm very familiar with them. Was at their game yesterday. I've seen the work that was going on with the Ducks organization. It's a very well organized and professional situation for our kids to be in. Elder YAH, I'm gonna go ahead and let you talk to our audience and give them an introduction to yourself, and just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background in the community, your background in life, basically.
Sure. Well, first let me give praise and honor and glory to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. For without him, this would be impossible. I want to thank you, Deacon Daryl, for hosting this program and for working with me so closely and so skillfully to bring this to pass. It's a vision and a dream come true, and I appreciate it. Where can I start?
There's so much, so much history in your life, man. So much history that you have to offer the world, man. Just pick a point.
Well,
we got an Amber Alert coming through on the call line. Sorry about that.
No,
go ahead, brother.
I was born in L.A.
Okay.
Man, just to cut to the chase, by chance, I ended up meeting Bill Cosby. I was in a drama program, and he came through and, well, I guess you could say discovered me, and it really opened a door for me in terms of my possibilities. I was just a kid in the ghetto, and that's all I saw. And watching him on TV was inspirational. At that time, he was the breakthrough television performer. Sidney Poitier was in movies and was taken seriously. He wasn't shuffling and being a coon and that. But to be on a television program, a dramatic program, and taken seriously, all of us were electrified by that. And so I can't even put it into words how incredible it was to meet him and to have him embrace me and hire me and pay me. And so really it opened the door for me in terms of what was possible for me. My whole world opened up. It gave me another level of confidence. And if Bill Cosby accepts me as something other than some little snotty-nosed kid in the ghetto, then the possibilities were endless for me. And at this stage of my life, I really feel obligated even and duty bound to inspire our youth in that same fashion. And I went on to participate in the music industry, work with some legendary artists as a producer, as a songwriter, as a musician. And I got a chance to tour with a group called the Silvers at that time. So I got to see the world, and I also got to find out that it wasn't what I thought it was. I mean, the glamour wore off real quickly. After a couple of, concerts, man, getting stuck at the airport in Chicago.
Right.
I'm like, this is a grind. This is not, I was seeing the Jackson 5 and
Right,
thought I was
exactly.
getting
It's not
ready
just
to
what you see on TV, right?
Oh, man, it was, the hysteria was incredible for an hour. The Silvers, it was just, we did gigs with like, the Chitlin Circuit type groups, the R&B groups, the Ohio Players and Kool and the Gang and people like that.
Right.
The next week we would be gigging with Chicago and Sonny and Cher, some of the pop acts.
Pop acts, right.
And so I got a chance to experience life and find out. By the time I was 25, I knew that fame and fortune was not the key to quote success. And it really was a blessing that Cosby did that, and that I ended up with the Silvers and on the road, because it prepared me as a young man to not. By the time I realized I had to give back to the community in ministry, I didn't approach it with ambition,
Right.
Because I already did that and found out what that was.
Right, exactly.
So I didn't become a career, preacher. That was, if you had asked me as a child, what is the last thing you would want to be?
Right.
It was a preacher. I was like, oh no, that's like, no. But when I discovered what church really was, when I got into the Bible and got beyond religion,
Right.
I discovered that that's really who I was. And it was just, it changed the course of my life. And so really at this stage, it's about taking that experience and the uniqueness of being in a position to move forward in ministry without the burden of ambition
Right, exactly.
that I need to exploit at this point. And so that's what I'm trying to do. Now, at Silver Spoon Productions during the 80s, we just literally changed the course of R&B music. As you know, L.A. and Babyface, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis became the key producers in the 90s. They got their start with us.
Right.
I worked on a Whispers album.
Right.
And Babyface was on the other side of the record.
Right.
I wrote and produced the title track of that record. He's on the other side,
Right.
imitating
Oh,
me,
yeah.
and then he goes on to greatness.
Right.
And so, and what happened was that I was offered a Motown distributed record deal,
Okay.
and we were at dinner about to complete that process. Shabar and I and Leon Silvers and some of the executives from the company. And so right when we were about to seal the deal, they said, now, we want creative control. And I was like, creative control, okay. That's like a code word for
Right, exactly. Right.
we're going to use you to push Satan.
Right,
And it's like,
exactly.
nah, you ain't going to,
Exactly,
nah.
right. We're going to dress you how we want to dress you, and
Yeah,
present you the way we want. We see you.
Exactly.
Right.
And it's like,
Right.
no.
Music,
By then
music
I was
is too spiritual.
Yeah, man, I was in the belly of the beast.
Right.
And I had the same attorney as Michael Jackson, John Branca.
Right.
I was like in the, and so, but there's no way I wasn't gonna like be gay or do some sign my name in blood. It's like I don't
Right.
want it that bad.
Right,
I just ended up in music. It wasn't like I'm like
You were chasing that. Right,
yeah.
right,
To
right.
me,
it just happened. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Part of your path.
And so they were, is this a deal breaker? And I said, yeah. And left and didn't know where I was going. I was like Abraham of old, just go to a land that I will show thee. Because I didn't have no money, no
Right.
sale. I'm like,
Right.
yikes. And so I just stepped off.
Okay.
And Shabar did too.
Okay.
He followed me in that.
Okay.
And to this day, I'm grateful in ways that I can't express for this man catching that vision and being willing to move with me in the way that he did. It was phenomenal.
Right.
And I wouldn't be sitting here today if it were not for his decency and his willingness to answer that call.
Right.
But at any rate, at that company, Bible studies began to come forth.
Oh wow.
And I ended up being the one who would would lead those.
Right.
And so I began to discover.
That's a backstage story. You know what I mean? 'Cause
You know what I
when
mean?
you picture the entertainment business, you don't picture, Bible study going on at a record label, right?
Right at the heart.
You see the glitz and glamour, but you don't see the spiritual side of it.
Exactly.
Right.
Oh yeah, they pray. I mean, there are people who are in that industry who are demonic.
Right.
But the ones who actually have creative power get that from God.
Right.
And so there are spiritual people there, peons who haven't sold their souls.
Right.
Once you sell your soul,
Right.
you lose the ability to create.
Right.
So you have to get people who ain't sold their soul, get all the creativity out of them, market that, and then hopefully get to sell their soul, and then the process continues.
Right. Trickle down.
It's
right.
like you think you're gonna get my soul for a record deal? You guys, you don't know what you're dealing with. That wasn't gonna happen.
That's knowledge, though. That's knowledge for a lot of these new artists coming up, where
Indeed.
they're just willing to do anything.
Right.
Anything for a record deal. Anything, for the company to produce a video for them so they can be seen. Hey, what do you want me to do? Where do I sign?
Exactly.
What do you want me to wear? How tight you want my pants today?
It really does. It really,
right?
And it is.
We see it.
It's a disgrace. It
Right.
really.
Right.
Where is our dignity? Pride goes before destruction.
Right.
And a haughty spirit before a fall.
Right.
But dignity is indispensable. I mean, I can't be a man and have no dignity, no self-respect.
Right.
And that's what they do.
Right.
And so if I don't speak out about this, being somebody who was the foundation of what's going on right now with hip hop and that, then woe be unto me.
Right.
And so
And hip hop is going to be a big piece of this conversation today, also, because
Indeed.
hip hop is part of what they call hip hop now is part of the destruction of our community,
That
of
influence.
all communities, not just our community, but of all communities,
Exactly.
all communities. Because, like what we were talking about the other day, hip hop is the biggest commodity internationally, coming out of the United States.
That's
Rap music
what
is the
stat.
biggest selling anything coming out of the United States.
Exactly.
And so its influence is seen worldwide. So what's being put out there is really directing a lot of things.
Exactly. And so then I would just go on to say briefly that I dealt with churches that Shabar was involved with, the church he grew up with. His mother was concerned that I was a guru that was leading was leading her son to ruin.
Right. He's like started a cult or something. Right.
Yeah. So she got his godfather, who was an assistant pastor at the church he grew up with, on the case. Right. So Shabar's dad took Shabar and I to a Sunday service.
Okay.
And his godfather was preaching. And when we walked in, he looked at me, and I say this in all humility, this is the truth, and lowered his eyes in the middle of his sermon and started quoting scriptures like, if a man be overtaken in a fault, ye which are spiritual, restore such a one in the spirit of meekness. He was under conviction.
Right.
After the service, he came up to me and, you don't know what this means to me, shook my hand. Later, he came to the house and told Shabar, this man has it, and you don't.
Wow.
And you need to follow this man.
Wow.
So what I'm doing is very legitimate.
Right.
His mother tried to run me off, and it ended up solidifying this.
Right, exactly.
And so we dealt with Maranatha Community Church in Los Angeles. I had a meeting with the assistant pastor concerning the music vision that we had, because I wanted a blessing of a church.
Right.
And so at that stage, I thought that's what to do.
Right.
I ended up praying, and the Spirit was moving in his office, and he had a look on his face of like bewilderment. It's like he didn't know what was up, and that tripped me out. I'm like, you're over 2,000 people in the city, you don't know the presence of wait a minute, what? So, I was kind of getting my bearings at that point. So at any rate, I was there and made changes at intercessory prayer. They started kind of following me despite themselves.
Right.
So I started peeping, it seems like the way things go, I outranked them.
Right.
It started to inform how I was to proceed.
Right.
And so finally, we left there after certain circumstances and began a public access outreach ministry that eventually covered most of Southern California and introduced a very controversial topic, and that is that we, as black people in America, God revealed to me, are the people of the book. We're the children of Israel. And of course, with a lot of excesses in the Hebrew Israelite movement, that the idea of being an Israelite is something that has taken on kind of negative connotation. But I'm convinced that it is so essential to our rise, meaning us and all people, until we can't bypass that. And so with great tension between me and the conventional church, I'm called to bring that truth to our people.
Right.
And so that's basically what this is about. It's about revealing the need to restore the identity of the so-called black man in America in order to solve America's problems and the world's problems.
Right.
And that's deep, but that's what it is.
Right. Most definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. Appreciate those words, brother.
Sure.
Coach Porter, how you doing over there, sir?
I'm good. I'm learning a lot just sitting here listening.
Most
Oh,
definitely.
man.
Well, hey, when you got a radio station in a church, man, it goes down, man.
Absolutely.
It goes down.
Absolutely.
You're
Thank
going to
you.
get more than you get in more
Yes,
commercial
sir.
stations, man. We really appreciate you being here, man.
Appreciate you having me.
Like I've been
Absolutely.
telling you,
Absolutely,
I've been
brother.
following you on social media for years.
Thank
This
you.
is not brand new. I've been following you for years, man. Respect what you're doing in the community.
Thank you, likewise.
Like on the last show when I was talking to the coaches and we discussed there's levels. As you and I discussed it also. There's levels to this. There's levels to community service. A lot of brothers coach. Some coach for popularity. Some coach because their kids play. Everybody has different reasons.
Right.
But the highest level of coaching is mentoring and community service and giving 100% of what God has given you to give to these kids and to give to the community, to give to parents. What a lot of people don't realize about us as coaches is we're like psychologists almost. You know what I mean? We're psychotherapists. We got to get inside the kid's head.
Right.
Then we got mom over here who just paid her last $250. The lights might get cut off, but she just paid that last $250 to get junior shoulder pads.
Right.
So we got to console her in a way and let her know it's going to be worth it. So we have a certain level of dignity we got to keep ourselves up to. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's something I definitely have seen in you, man, over
Thank you.
the last few years.
Excellent.
I like I said, I was at the Ducks games yesterday, man, out at Adelanto High School. I'm impressed by the organization.
Thank you.
I'm impressed by their professionalism. I was impressed by all the coaches. I was impressed by all the families. I was impressed by all the kids, man.
Yeah.
Just the level of impression that you guys put on me, man. It was outstanding. I had a great time. As you see, I shot the game. Your game was from 11 to 12?
Yeah.
I didn't leave till like 3 o'clock.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I was enjoying. I was caught up in the moment, man. I was enjoying the moment, man.
That's awesome.
I was enjoying seeing those blowouts too. You know what I'm saying? The Ducks. Well, we're not going to talk about that. Right. Well, that's another show. That's another show.
But,
I really appreciate having you here today, man. And just tell us something about yourself. Tell us about where you're from, how long you've been coaching, just your involvement with the Ducks. Just just freestyle.
I'm from in and around the San Bernardino area, Fontana.
Okay.
I went to school at Fontana High School.
Okay.
Graduated in '98. Played football, baseball.
Okay.
My whole life.
Okay.
From YAH Khai and up through high school.
Okay.
Now, once high school ended, my football and baseball career ended as well.
Right.
So I was kind of lost at that moment, at that transition right there. Because I've been told, oh yeah, you play football. This is what you do.
Right.
You play this,
Right.
you play that.
Like it was
And when-
profession already, right?
Already.
Right.
And so when it was no longer there, we kind of veered off,
Right.
left.
Right.
And went, went through another transitional phase and got into some issues. Met my wife and everything, and just been growing. I've been coaching for the last 5 years.
Okay.
Only 5 years because I didn't realize that I actually wanted to coach.
Right.
I didn't know I
Right.
wanted.
It's hard for an athlete to give up that dream, especially if it's been pitched to you for so
Right.
long. You never see yourself on the sideline. You know what I'm
No.
saying? You always picture yourself, what other opportunities do I have to play?
Right.
And then, it'll get revealed to you, man,
Exactly.
one way or another. Right.
And it did.
Right.
As I had my own children, I've seen started to see a need of quality, not only coaching, quality mentoring.
Right.
There's not quite enough, although there is a lot,
Right.
with things that you do in other organizations.
Right.
do
It's
great.
growing. It's growing.
It's growing
Right.
rapidly in both directions,
Right.
both good and bad.
Right. Real talk.
So that's why I got into coaching, to try and put in what I can put in, take my knowledge, of life lessons and instill it into the kids.
Wow, that's amazing.
Other than that, that's it. That's all I do. I'm family, and as you see, my family's here now.
Right, definitely. We're glad to have the Porter family in the house,
Right
enjoying the refreshments in the snack hall over there. Right, definitely.
So as we sit here now, I want to take the chance to let everybody know it has to go past coaching.
Right.
Coaching for the win, as we was talking about.
Right, definitely.
So I'm adamant now and appreciative of what you're doing here, so we can get that out to let people know it's not about the win.
Right.
So that's basically it. I'm here to help out with any solutions, any type of positivity influence that I can have.
Right, definitely.
On this youth, and my main focus is youth. I'm in from 5 to up through high school.
Right, that's the future.
That's it.
That's the future. We getting old. You see these gray beards. You see these gray beards in here, man. We're getting old, man. We have to leave them with something and hope that they continue something, and not destructive things.
Other than the sport itself.
Right, exactly.
Because the sport will leave and will leave you where it wants to.
Exactly.
At any time that it wants to.
Sprained ankle at the wrong time, career's over. Now what? Where your dreams?
You blew your Achilles out, whatever the case may be. Now what?
Right. Do you give up on life? Right.
No. So along with these sports organizations, I would love to see some more additional programming, additional teaching.
Right, definitely.
That athlete that you're telling he needs to be an athlete, he needs the agent too.
Right.
He needs a marketer. He needs a manager.
Right. There's a lot of different roles you can play within
roles.
Athletics. Right.
They need good sports broadcasters.
Right. Definitely.
So we need to shine the light more on that than just the sport.
The career of sports, not just being an athlete. Right. Definitely. That's real. And we need a lot more minorities in those positions also. It gets brought up a lot in the NFL, no black owners and just things of that nature. Looking at the big picture could lead to situations like that. So I totally agree with that.
Let me add that I'm realizing as I seek to organize and to identify and convene leadership to deal with these youth, and of course with their families, because we can't deal with them outside of their context and expect anything other than marginal success,
because we're supplemental. They gotta go home. Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so we need to deal with that unit.
Right.
I had an experience in working with an organization up here called One-to-One Mentors, and I was able to create some family support outlines for teaching.
Right.
And the results were amazing.
Right.
And it showed me, I got to meet some of the families and stuff. My wife at the time was teaching the classes. And I saw the tremendous impact that we had when we dealt with the unit. And so to some extent we have to move beyond, and I'm not speaking of anybody in particular, but just as a general statement,
definitely.
Beyond what amounts to scapegoating our youth. You know, why can't they be like we were, perfect in every way?
Right.
What's the matter with children today? Well, when I think back on some of the shenanigans that I was involved in, some of the ways I dressed and some of the stuff I did, this is a mistake. And so I wanted to say that. And also that the fact that you brothers are coaches is significant, because that the whole notion of sports being a way out of adverse circumstances has gripped our community to the point where it's a pandemic. It's just everybody wants to be an athlete.
And there's only so many scholarships. There's so many NBA, you know, rookie situations. There's only so many NFL situations. But if you got 20 million, 20 million kids pushing toward that, I mean, it's a brick wall.
It really, and it's setting people up for defeat. It's absurd. And so the front line, I'm seeing more and more, really, in terms of this, are coaches who deal with these youth and their families in most instances, who are in a position to transition us away from that obsession. And so I appreciate the work that you brothers do.
Definitely,
and I'm delighted to work with you to see what we can do about this. I mean, somebody getting gunned down in an honor student in her living room at age 12. This is unacceptable.
Right.
And
Right.
so I can't stand idly by and do that. We need to do something.
Right, definitely.
And so
Definitely.
you coaches certainly have the ear of our youth.
Right.
And obviously a heart for them.
Right,
And it's
definitely.
just kind of an epiphany for me now. I'm like, oh, okay, so
Right. And
that's what I need to do
and a
as
direct connect, we
a
gotta-
spiritual leader.
Right.
I have to network with these coaches
Right.
and mentors, especially the the men who represent fatherhood, which is a missing component in our people, and is at the heart of this dysfunction.
Right.
You know.
And we have a direct, as coaches, we have a direct connect to families, which is more than the schools have.
Say that.
A lot of schools don't even know the parent. They see them
don't
on-
even know,
when
yeah.
it's time to register, or when a kid gets in trouble, that's the only time they see Miss Johnson come to the school. Whereas coaches,
Right.
we're dealing with these parents every day at practice. We're dealing
Right.
with them at fundraisers. We're dealing with them, banquets, at every situation, within our organization.
Exactly.
And I'm glad you touched on that, because parenting, getting back to topic as far as the violence
Yes.
in the desert,
Absolutely.
parenting has a lot to do with it. I mean, a lot of people want to point the fingers at, these kids, they're just out of control. I mean, we've been hearing that since the 50s and 60s. These kids are just out of control.
Right.
They don't, but these kids go home to parents.
That's right.
And what we have to change is the pridefulness of parents who don't know how to be parents.
True.
We've for years we've had underage parents, but there's a level of pride that most people have, that once they have a kid, they already know how to be a parent. And that's not true. Just
That's
because
true.
you had a kid, I
That's
don't
right.
care if you're 40 years old and you have your first child, and you've observed other parents and other families, and you came from a 2-parent household, you still, there's really no guidebook or rule book other than community as far as raising kids. It takes the community. They've always said it takes a village, but it takes the community or village to raise kids. But we have to kind of kill that pridefulness that's in.
Right.
Like I said, I've worked with kids for 20 years, so that's 20 years worth of parents I've also dealt with. So and I've seen this. I've seen the attitude of parents who might make a mistake in the raising of their kids, like letting their kids just stay on social media all day and all night and just view whatever they want to do at the age of 9. I deal with parents like that on a regular basis, and it's trendy now. Because most parents, I can't lie, I'm on social media all day and all night, but I'm a marketeer. That's my thing. That's where I do most of my business. That's what pays the bills. But letting kids just stay on social media, and I mean, especially here in the desert. We were talking earlier, Coach Porter, about just the lack of things for kids to do here in the desert. It's at a point now to where we have to supplement these kids' lives. More after-school programs is not the answer. A lot of after-school programs, to get funding, they pitch that, hey, most crimes happen between 3 o'clock and 6 o'clock. Not in the desert.
Right.
They happen between 6 and midnight now, and all day on the weekends when the kids are, they're not at school. You know what I mean?
That's just a fundraising ploy.
Right. So just having kids there from 3 to 6. Hey, it's cool. That's another 3 hours that you kept these kids occupied, but they're still at school. They're still kind of going through school business. They're really not picking up social skills. They're really not learning much.
Not learning much. That's you hit on. I don't mean to
No,
interrupt.
go ahead.
Jump in. Yeah.
I want to thank you as a person that's outside of the sports community.
Right.
You're not, you may have been involved at one time. I don't know.
Right.
But just from meeting you and listening to you,
Yes.
you're not involved in the sports community.
Right.
So per se. And so I want to thank you for taking the time to recognize we need some help.
Oh man.
We need help.
Right,
I'm
right.
first to say it. Like
Right.
Yes,
our
sir.
resources and knowledge is limited. A lot of us
Right.
don't have an extensive educational background as far as the traditional background.
Right.
Right.
So and resources and connections
Yes,
and
sir.
things of that nature.
Yeah.
All I have is my knowledge of football and sports and what it did for me
Right.
and what I can help these kids with.
Right.
And we need more people such as yourself, such as Deacon Daryl,
Right.
to open up these doors to say,
Indeed.
all right, now we took them this far. Go ahead, help
Yes,
them out
sir.
the rest of the way.
Yes,
It's
sir.
the community.
Beautiful.
The community working together, man.
Absolutely.
And that's what this show is all about. That's where me and Brother YAH sat down and had meetings about, hey,
Yeah.
what direction are we going to go with this? My sports background and my sports influence in the high desert. And we both agree. Well, we don't need to create a sports show. You know, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. You know, well, we are trying to reinvent the wheel. You know, we're not trying to do the same thing that everybody else is doing. Just, you know, interviewing coaches and just talking about sports. And, you know, how many points did you guys get this weekend? But this is a community health and wellness show.
Indeed.
Basically dealing with kids, because that's, you know, like I said, I've worked with kids for 20 years, so that's my background in mentoring, is mentoring kids. I'm moving forward to mentoring adults now.
And that's what I've been doing.
Right, because like I said, that's an even bigger need, because like I said, we're supplementing these kids' lives, but we're only in their lives part-time. They still have to go home. Yes. So if they're going home to a situation which reciprocates what we've taught them, you know, it kind of balances out to zero, like nothing really has been added to their lives. So if we can as a community help home lives, help parents, help our neighbors, look out for things of that nature, the kids will see that. It'll become contagious. Most good things are contagious. Bad things can be contagious, but most good things are contagious in a way to where you feel good and you can sleep well at night because you know you did something good. Excellent. So we just need more situations. We're gonna keep these radio shows cranking out at KYCN studio, bringing these conversations up, having these conversations that people might be having behind closed doors, but it needs to be presented to the public to get opinions out there, to get conversations going to where solutions and suggestions are being heard and made, and not just opinions. Indeed. Me and Brother YAH we had a big discussion the other day about opinions, man. Opinions and pointing fingers has never solved anything. You know, saying, you know, the high desert is the methamphetamine capital of the world. That's why there's so much crime up there. Are they moving all these blacks from LA up to Adelanto and Victorville? That's why all this crime is up here. That's an opinion. That's pointing a finger. The three brothers sitting here, we're from down the hill. None of us are from the high desert. We all migrated this way, you know, for whatever reason, for our families and whatnot. I don't consider myself a bad person. I was born in South Central Los Angeles. I grew up off of Vermont and Jefferson. You know, I witnessed the gang banging and the drug dealing from early on. You know, from elementary school. There were guys selling drugs when I was in elementary school and gang banging and all. But it's not where you're from. It's where you're at spiritually. Indeed. It's where you're at mentally. It's, you know, just the experiences that you've had. And like I said, me and Coach Porter were talking earlier. We were talking about the Huskies on the last show, about how the Huskies, you know, the coaches are taking their kids out of the high desert, you know, every now and then to give them different experiences. Let the kids see that there's more than just the high desert. There's a lot more things out there in the world, a lot more experiences for you to have, and bring those experiences back to the high desert. You know, and keep those experiences in your heart, and, you know, explain those to other people, and you know, continue that process going on, man. But yeah, it's time for more than just finger pointing and opinion. So we're gonna kind of touch on that a little bit more now, as far as the topic of this conversation, which is the violence in the high desert. Like Brother YAH talked about earlier, the young lady, the little girl. I'm not even gonna give her. She never made it to be a young lady. Indeed. The little girl who was killed in her home, in a place that's supposed to be safe. Word. You know, most kids, when I remember being a kid, home was safe. You know, and I grew up in LA. Now, when I walked out the door, it might not have been the safest place in the world. But when I came in and I locked that door behind me, it was a safe place. I never really, you know, had to think about or worry about anything like that. Indeed. Now that's a conversation that's being had. Now there's kids that are worried. Now there's kids that are scared. Like, wow, that happened right down the street from me. You know, what's going on here? The brother we were talking about earlier, the semi-pro football player, you know what I mean? Just gunned down in a store parking lot, you know, just random crazy acts of violence, and you know, it makes the news. It makes Victor Valley News Group. You know, shout out to Hugo. You know, it comes out as information, but not too many people are talking about solutions. Other than the politicians who are trying to get, you know, keep their, you know, next year's a voting. I think next year's an election year, so they're trying to keep their spots. So, you know, they're going to throw out there, hey, we'll get more sheriffs. This is what we're gonna ask the state of California for extra couple $1 million so we can hire another 20, 30 sheriffs. You know, that'll keep the streets safer. But the problem is much deeper than that. If you have the opinion that more police, you know, solve violent problems in communities, listen to what we have to say, because I think the three of us have a different opinion on that, especially like I said, growing up in LA probably got more cops than any other city in the world.
Absolutely.
And still has one of the highest crime rates. So obviously that's not the solution. It's more so, it's an inside thing. We have to look inside the community and not outside the community for help. We got to look deeper inside the community and pull our resources, pull our strong minds together, pull our community resources together and make things change. Parenting classes, more things for these kids to do in the afternoon, more just more knowledge, kicking more knowledge to these kids as opposed to just letting them sit up on social media all day or sit up on their Xbox all day playing video games, but actually instilling things in these kids to where violence won't seem like an option.
Right.
And it's not just kids that commit these crimes, but these adults that are committing crimes, they were kids once. They were kids led astray. Sure. That it continued. That contagious negativity continued, and they just thought, hey, well, this is part of my life. I've done it before. I've been to jail before. This must be who I am. We have to give our kids and our men new identities. They need to realize who they really are on this earth, and not just who they are on the street or who they are to their friends, but who they are on the planet Earth. The planet Earth is much bigger than Victorville, Barstow, Apple Valley, Hesperia. The world is a much bigger place than that. But when you get trapped in that mind state, and then you just, it seems like a desolate situation to you. My mom's not working, my dad's not in the house. I got this American dream. Yeah, that's my biggest thing is this American dream that the media sells to kids. And like I said, it's really being sold through social media. They're seeing their favorite rappers. He's got the latest Mercedes-Benz and the biggest gold chain and the flashiest rings on his hand. A lot of these kids, like, I come from the music business also. Brother YAH comes from the music business. I spent 10 to 15 years in the music business also. So I know it as an insider also. Hey, some of those cars are rented, guys. some of those Mercedes-Benzes you see in the videos, they're rented for one day. They don't belong to those artists that you think are just really living as large as you think they're living, and you're seeking to live as mighty as they are, and it's just a false dream a false narrative that they're sending to our kids. That's to where true. Our kids are like really trying to live up to this. That's the new American dream, is whatever the rappers are doing, what's the latest car they have, the latest jewelry. I want to attain that. I know I'm only 11 years old, but I want that. That's an impossible dream. That's an impossible journey that we're sending these kids on. It has a lot to do with social media. Like I said, I love social media. Everybody that knows me knows I love social media. Most people that know me from social media. So social media has its purpose. But parents, you got to see what your kids are doing on social media. You got to see who they're following on social media. What videos are they watching? What videos are they hitting the like button on? You need to dig deep and control that situation. It's a free enterprise now because all the kids want cell phones. All the kids have cell phones. It's an app that comes on their cell phone already. But parents need to start. Like I said, there's adults who have kids who consider themselves parents. But if you're not regulating those things, I don't consider you a parent. If you just let your kid.
Let me just jump in here and say that I concur with your notion that we need to become solution oriented. The idea that we keep rehearsing this problem. I mean, we've become masterful at articulating what's wrong.
Right, exactly.
And I'm at the point where I'm frustrated.
Right.
I look at Facebook and every other post, so they killed a black man and he got
right.
We sell a little something, a little crack or something, and get 20 years in jail, and white people just get a slap on the wrist. So our idea of being equal is what? Being able to get away with as much mischief as whites? We've lost our way. The bottom line solution, in my judgment, to this issue of violence is the fact that historically, police have been perceived, and rightfully so in our communities, as an occupying army.
Right.
So, and the old saying, no justice, no peace, is spot on. The reality is that without justice coming from the police department, our natural instinct would be to take justice into our own hands.
Correct.
And so that's why we see a lot of this violence and this madness. Our people are frustrated because there's no justice. So we're waiting for American jurisprudence to give us justice.
Right.
That's a mistake. We don't understand who we are. We have to lead this. And so, meaning America, bottom up. We can't follow them.
Right.
And so, organizing our communities and creating a sense of accountability and responsibility in terms of governance will end justice, in this sense of injustice. Also, the biblical principle, vengeance is mine, says the Lord, I will repay. If we can get it in the minds of our people that justice won't go unserved if we don't take it into our own hands.
Right.
There is divine retribution.
Right.
What goes around comes around, and we get our people to recognize that and see their frustration at injustice. I think we can tamper that down. But we're dealing with Band-Aid solutions. And just as a physician of sorts, of the spirit, I understand the need for a nurse. But at the end of the day, we really need healing.
Right.
And we need to get to foundational principles. And I'm convinced that a sense of injustice is what's driving this tendency toward violence.
And taking things into your own hands. A retribution spirit.
It really is.
Right.
And if we can squash that, then we can get a climate and an atmosphere in our people where we can begin to speak life into them again. I also want to say that prior to integration, our churches were not what the Gentile churches are, which is like kind of bless me clubs or come on Sunday and hip hip hallelujah or whatever it is. Their worship is superficial because they believe in the separation of church and state.
Right.
So they try to keep their politics separate. Before we had access to the broader society, we didn't do that. Our instinct was, everything was in-house. The church was the hub for our politics, our economics, our spirituality. I mean, it was everything. Our politicians, Reverend Jesse Jackson,
right.
Reverend Martin Luther King. And so we need to get back to that model. We need to return to the church being not the way the Euro-Gentile churches are, but the way the pattern was before integration, and that is we need to, separation of church and state is fine. You can't, if you separate morality from state, you get what we now see.
Right, what we're dealing with.
Yeah, and so.
Corporate prisons, right.
That, and so on. Corporate prisons, this is like, I go back far enough, I'm like alarmed at this.
Right.
And so we got to get solutions to our people.
Right,
and suggestions as you describe, and not just continue to regurgitate our dismay at what's happening with us and whining, being black, Let us look toward solutions and stop being timid and deal with the fundamental root of it. Now, if I broke my arm, for example, and went to a doctor, I would be a fool if he tried to set it and I'm thinking he's trying to hurt me. It may be painful. It's going to be permanently unusable if I don't let him set that.
Right.
There's a certain amount of pain in healing and in that process. And our people think that anything that hurts is of the devil.
Right.
Well, if that's the case, our mothers were sinning when we were birthed. I mean, nothing beautiful is born but by travail.
Right.
We have to revisit the fact that pain, look, I could be sitting here and have my hand in a fire, and if it didn't hurt, I wouldn't know it. My hand would be burned up. Pain has a purpose.
Right.
And we need to understand how to recycle our pain and not flee pain. That's why we shy away from solutions, because there's a certain amount of discomfort involved.
Right.
But it's temporary.
Right.
We just need sound teaching. Don't be afraid to hurt. Well, you guys are coaches. For my own son, I tell him, you're sore when you get back, and you're glad. You're never mad. But if I say something to you that hurts your spirit, you all of a sudden you're offended. I'm your spiritual coach. So if you feel a little pain, that's growing pain, man. That's letting you know that you being broken out is going to grow back.
Right.
And so my challenge in teaching my own sons and daughter, and even my spiritual sons around the world who are 50 years old and down. I mean, I got some, get used to it. I mean, Christ was brutally murdered that we might be reconciled unto the Most High. We would do well to consider that. And then he said, if any man would follow me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. And notice, he didn't die for his own sins.
Right.
So our crosses must be to do what? Bear one another's burdens. I have to be willing to suffer for my brothers. If we're not willing to do that, just get used to it. We're just going to continue to be at the bottom and continue to recycle this pain.
Right.
We have to be willing to stand up and suffer for one another, ride and die for real.
Right.
And so those are some kind of thumbnail solutions to get past this.
Right.
And so that's really what I want to focus on continually in this ministry.
Right.
Yeah.
I definitely appreciate that. Definitely appreciate that. Coach Porter, we talked earlier, we were talking about other coaches and how amazed I was at the Huskies game a few weeks ago when I saw like 7 or 8 different coaches from different organizations. That's a new trend up here. It's a new trend in the High Desert. I've been coaching up here for a while, and you know, I've seen our community at odds with one another, our sports community at odds with one another. One organization thinking they're better than the other organization, or we got more wins, so we're better. Or we got more parents. But they're, you know, in quotes, community organizations. You know what I mean? And like I said, that was a blessed occasion seeing all the coaches together, because what we got to realize is the High Desert, although it's 5 or 6 different cities, like we were talking earlier, it's really just one big city, and we all got to get along and deal with each other as one big community, man. What do you feel about that, man?
You know, it's you're right on the money there. It felt good. It felt good to see. I think there was maybe 5 or 6 different organizations there. Right. That's never. Well, I've never seen it happen. Right.
I had to take pictures, man. I told you. I took pictures of all you guys. You know, you and Jimmy Jam, you and all the guys together.
And actually, man. we actually played some of those people. Right. But for them to come out, it was big. It's a big step. Right. Because without communicating and communing with one another, it becomes barriers. It becomes separate. Right. At that point.
Like churches. Right.
It just like churches.
Right. Churches are gangs. Right. Churches are the new gangs. You know what I mean?
Straight up.
That's the lead into our next show. Our next show next week is going to be what is church. Mm-hmm. We're going to really dissect what people are calling church nowadays. I mean, because it's like you said, just like with the coaches and these youth organizations, right. They're separating themselves from what's supposed to be their mission.
Yes. And they're losing sight, and this is just my opinion, they're losing sight of what it's really about. It's not the win. It's not your trophy mantle sitting over there. It's about these kids and these lessons. Right. So that's what I'm here for. So I say that to say that was a big step, seeing all of those people out there. And my hat's off, you know, goes to the Jackrabbits, to the Ducks, the who else was out there? Hurricanes. You had the Huskies out there. So my hat's off for them even coming out there.
Right. That was big. Like I said, we've been doing this for years up here, man. That was a, you know,
that's
that was
the
a
first step right there. And when the kids are so used to us competing with the Jackrabbits, our kids will talk, you know, and they do talk how we do.
That's absolutely.
And so they'll talk amongst themselves. So when they see the Jackrabbits coming to watch their game, now they don't feel so negative about the Jackrabbits.
Right.
Hey, how you doing?
They're part of our community.
He's part of us.
Right.
He's not against us.
Right.
So that was huge, and I thank you for coming out.
Oh,
and,
definitely.
I just look forward to sitting with you brothers more than today.
Excellent.
And coming up with these hard solutions.
Let's do this.
Yeah, it's there's definitely a task ahead of us. We're not saying from this one radio show that we're going to solve all the problems in the High Desert. Yes. We're just presenting suggestions, solutions, making people aware of some things they might not be aware of. Like we were just talking about corporate prisons and the recidivism rate of people going back to jail. It's a new ball game. It's not what a lot of people think that it is. A lot of people look at, okay, well, if they commit crimes, they need to be in jail. Maybe that person needs to be rehabilitated. Maybe that person still has a future. You know, you shouldn't just throw people out to the wayside. Just, okay, he's been incarcerated. You know, he was down on his luck. These particular situations happened to him. His spirit was going in a really wayward way, and this situation happened to him. He's still alive. He's still walking this earth. He or she. because we, you know, the crime goes both ways. You know, it's not just brothers out here committing crime. You know, it's an equal opportunity employer. So we have to think more about rehabilitation, but we really have to think about getting to these kids before it comes to that point of having to rehabilitate these kids.
Yes.
You know, let's be those shining examples in these kids' lives, these positive examples. You know, teaching these kids that, hey, the American dream is being who you want to be, who God has you on this earth to be, not just, you know, what you saw in a YouTube video or what you saw on television or in a movie. And that starts at home. That starts with parents. Parents, like I keep going back to that because, like I said, my experiences with kids, and it boils back down to the parents wanting their kids to have as many experiences in life that they can have. You know, show your kid the world, even if you haven't seen the world. As an adult, you should know the world is still out there,
yes.
and you should want your kid to have those experiences that you might not have had. You know, and educate yourself on how this world moves and enlighten your kids on that.
Well, Daryl, you mentioned, excuse me,
No,
you mentioned the American dream,
Right.
and there's a fine line that we have to walk with that. Certainly, there's a temptation on the part of our people to be anti-America because of the abuses that we've suffered over these centuries.
Right.
But the reality is, even beyond that, or apart from that, the idea of your goal in life to be the accumulation of things
Right.
is a mistake.
Right.
I mean, Craig, how
It's
can
so
we go to
false.
church and
Right.
do that?
Right.
You're seeking things primarily, and he said, don't do that. And that's what we do. We're going to have to start doing what he said in terms of moving past the way this is. But I think that there's an inescapable need to deal with the root and dysfunction of these adults. And what it is, in my judgment, is a lack of identity. Everybody in this world has a national identity. America is a melting pot.
Right.
I think every nation in the world, 170 plus nations in the world, are represented here.
Right.
But they're Irish Americans, they are Italian Americans. They have a nation, a national identity. Our people, of all people, were stripped of that.
Right.
So black is a color.
Right.
Africa is a continent. There are 50, so we can't coalesce around a color or a continent,
Right.
but a culture. And so we have to have our identity restored
Right. Definitely.
in order to have the esteem,
Right.
you know, the self-belief that we can come up out of this curse.
Right.
And so that is an idea whose time has come, and with great tension between me and those who have a problem with that. We can't sidestep that. Black, African American, these are bywords that
Right.
you can't, we'll never unify until we have a national identity.
Right.
So European Americans, no, I'm Irish, I'm Greek, I'm German. They know their national identity.
Right.
And so, they knew that they couldn't enslave our people unless they took that identity away.
Correct.
And that lets you know, if you go in a ditch, you got to back up, put it in reverse, come out the same way you went in.
Right.
We have to have our identity restored.
Right.
And so for some people, that's like, what does it have to do with it? It seems too big or
Right.
undoable.
But if you don't know who you are, you never will know who you're going to be.
You
Right.
can't,
Right.
because you
It's
don't know where
impossible.
you came
Right.
from.
Right.
You
It's
don't know
impossible.
your
It's
DNA.
impossible. Right.
It is literally,
Right.
but we're wasting our time
Right.
and money and resources
Right.
unless we focus, unless we understand the role that national identity plays
Right.
in the health of a people.
Right.
And then you can, that extends to everybody. That's not a race thing.
Right.
I mean, everybody's suffering from the fact that the black man's identity has been removed.
Right.
Every race. And they're all represented here. And when America sneezes, the world catches a cold. So we are in a unique position, having been expatriated the way we were,
Right.
to literally make a contribution to this earth which will right this ship. And for some people, that's too big, but
Right. Right.
for me, it's not.
Right.
And you're embracing of what it is I'm doing has been, I can't explain to you what that means to me in terms of seeing my way through to complete this assignment at the local level.
Right,
I
definitely.
mean, it just is, your
Definitely.
work is remarkable.
I see the big picture. I see.
You do.
I mean, unifying the community, which is the basis of this whole situation,
Right.
is what that's what I'm big on.
Absolutely.
Unifying the entire community, not one particular community.
Well,
but the entire
community.
community.
What is community? Right. Commune. There's a scripture that says, "Let he that is taught in the word communicate with him that teaches in all good things." Communicate is talk in English. In the Hebrew understanding, in the scriptures, to communicate is to have all things in common.
Right.
That's what we're missing. I also would say, without at the risk of getting too deep, I don't know, but I'm just gonna say what it is.
Hey, who else is having this conversation though? Who else are they gonna hear this conversation from?
I mean, if not me, who?
Right.
And if not here, where?
Right.
And so,
right.
I just, man, I even lost it. What were we just saying? I lost that thought.
About talking about community and commune.
Yeah, the word community. Yeah. He told Adam in the beginning to have dominion. That's rulership. He didn't say own the earth. The scripture says the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein.
Right.
So the mistake we make is to focus on ownership rather than stewardship. That's where wars and fighting comes in. If I see that everything that's been given to me belongs to him and I'm a steward over that which belongs to someone else,
Right.
that changes my whole approach
Right.
to my fellow man.
Right.
And so materialism is a formula for war,
Right,
frankly.
definitely.
And of course, communism has taken on negative connotation because it is a godless situation. We don't own anything, but the state owns everything.
Right.
That's problematic.
Right.
But the notion of communalism or having all things in common is indispensable. There's no possible way our people in particular, given just our nature and the way we are, you were discussing yesterday how we are I forgot the language you used, but we're a peaceful people
Right.
by nature.
Right.
We're not going to be able to build outside of that context, meaning having that identity restored and moving into coming up out of these curses that are
Right.
on our people.
Right, definitely.
And that will have the effect of causing the world to find their way.
Right.
I mean, why do they follow hip hop the way they do around the world?
Right.
It's just instinctually in them. It's like I can't explain. It's like blood memory or something. It's like they know who we are
Right.
and know that we're the leaders of this world. And so it's time for us to know that. But it can't be abstract. We have to know that in some tangible
Right.
way.
Right.
And that's what I'm trying to bring.
Right.
And at this stage, I see no room for compromise. And it's like we're trying to find a soft pedaling way to bring this. We're trying to make it palatable to people who are culturally enslaved by the American dream. I can't do that.
Right.
This is what it is. Whether you like it or not, at some point, we're just going to have to deal with what it actually is.
Right.
And so that's what I'm about at this stage.
Oh
you
yeah,
know?
definitely. And we see your role. We definitely see you playing your role in that, brother. Coach Porter, let's talk about what we were talking about a few minutes ago, as far as how impressed we were seeing the coaches coming together and starting to support one another. What are the type of things you think in our circle, in our sports world, that us, we as coaches and mentors, what other things do you think that we can do in the community that we're possibly not already doing? What are some other things that we need to add to our plate, aside from just coaching and, maybe taking a kid home from practice every now and then, things of that nature?
It goes directly back to mentoring, taking the college campus visits. Take a group of kids to go visit a college campus. Take a group of kids to go to a steel plant. Go to come to the radio station. So take what we already have been able to establish with the kids, that good relationship. They're willing to do whatever we ask them.
Excellent.
Whether it's positive or negative, take the negative out and take that their ears are open, and let's go do something else while their ears are open, and then we'll come back to this particular sport that you're in. So that's my main focus, and why I want to get more involved, is taking that focus away from the sport.
Right.
Just use what you have from that sport. You have their attention, and go beyond it.
That's a good, solid solution.
Right.
So,
Definitely. It's experience. Life is about experiences.
The one last thing I would just
Yeah,
want to
go ahead.
touch
No, go
on
ahead,
real
brother.
quick,
Brother, go
as
ahead.
far as the organizations out there, the people that are running these organizations, I'm speaking from our standpoint, you have to hold accountable. You have to hold accountable people that are pretending to be coaches and pretending to be mentors.
Go ahead, my
I'm
brother.
going to just call it
Say
out there
that.
because it's a lot
Absolutely.
Right.
of them. So it's
there,
their
man. Put it on.
responsibility to hold them accountable
Yes,
and get
sir.
rid of that.
Right.
And then from there, replace those with others like ourselves. And there's a lot of others out there that want to do it for the right reasons.
Right.
That's where we can start to
Clean
change
up
that.
the ranks. Yes, sir.
So
Right. Most
that's-
definitely. Most
Beautiful.
definitely.
Beautiful.
That's an excellent point. Excellent point. Excellent point. Well, at this time, we did advertise it as a call-in show.
Right.
So if anyone out there that's listening right now, if you have an opinion, I know we've gone on a million different levels with the topic of violence in the high desert. We didn't speak as specifically as most people may have wanted us to, but it's bigger than what most people think it is. Elder YAH spoke from a spiritual perspective, where people's spirits need to be if they really want to see a solution. If you just have an opinion, your spirit's not in the right place in the first place, so we really don't want to hear what you have to say. If your spirit's in the right place, or if it was leaning toward the right place, his conversation should have kind of helped direct, your intent and any solutions or suggestions that you may have. And Coach Porter and myself, we were speaking from our community as far as, we deal directly with these kids on a daily basis as coaches, as mentors. I always call myself a mentor that just happens to coach. I just happen to like sports. If I'm teaching a kid how to play chess, I'm still a mentor first, as I'm teaching that kid how to play chess. So, and like Coach Porter said, it's about where your heart is at. If your heart is not in changing the community, step back and let the people whose hearts are really in this do what needs to be done. Don't be a deterrent. Don't get in the way. Just step back and let us continue to do what we have been blessed on this earth to do. Because it's a blessing to be a mentor.
It is.
It's a blessing. I enjoy it. I don't do it for money. I don't do it to stick my chest out. I don't
The money we were making it think.
Right.
We were doing it for
Right,
money.
exactly. I don't do it for any type of gratification.
Yeah.
I don't do it for any brotherhood or even camaraderie.
Indeed.
I do it just because my spirit. I wake up every morning.
I love it.
And just go where my spirit leads me to go. I mean, it's that simple.
Daryl, let me just jump in and say, while we're on the air and the world is listening, I really appreciate you helping me get that. It was so unlikely, that position as a program leader at Think.
Most definitely.
It really. I had worked at 1-to-1.
Right.
But that situation, working with those kids and
Yeah.
their parents on a daily.
I felt your spirit the minute I met you, and I knew you'd be good to work with kids instantly.
Yeah.
Instantly, I knew it. I knew it about because you had the right spirit. I've worked in education for a long time, and
Yeah.
I've seen the wrong spirit in education.
Right.
I've seen teachers
just
and,
like my brother mentioning
Right,
the coaches.
right,
we
right,
got to weed
right.
that out, man.
When I worked for Think Together, I did the interviewing, so I saw who was coming through the door. And,
Yeah,
and luckily I was able to be in a position to kind of.
Well, I'm different. I am a child of. I'm Hebrew Israelite aware.
Right,
Some
right.
people, Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Right.
No, I'm not a Muslim.
right.
So it's kind of, I'm
Right,
not your typical
right,
guy, but
right.
you dealt with me
Yeah.
fairly based
Right.
upon my spirit.
Right, I read
and what
spirits. Right.
That was
Right.
a godsend. And so I love you for that, and I
Oh,
appreciate
definitely.
that, man.
It's mutual.
It really,
It's
it
mutual.
really
You've
helped me.
You've added just as much to my life as I've added to your life, brother. Just know
Well,
that. Just know
it's
that.
beautiful. I appreciate it. I just want to
Oh,
throw
definitely
that
appreciate
in,
that, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate that shout out. And like I was saying, if anybody would like to call in, this will be the time to call in. I think we've made a few points, a few suggestions, put a few solutions out there.
Absolutely. That makes this different.
Definitely.
It's not just on here griping.
Right.
We're looking for
Right.
some
Right.
answers because we believe that we can reduce, if not completely eliminate this.
Right.
I actually believe that.
Right.
Some people don't. Like you mentioned, high desert, that's crack city or methamphetamine headquarters.
Right.
I don't believe in making those kinds of utterances. Let us declare that we can do something about this and stop continuing. I appreciate that about you and about this program and about what we're doing here.
Right. If you already think you lost the race, you might as well take your shoes off. Just
it is.
Take your shoes off and go home.
Yeah.
If you think the race is over, take your shoes off.
You're
and go
not
home.
going to absolutely.
The race continues, man.
Indeed,
and,
it does.
And I got on cleats, brother. I don't have on regular running shoes. I got on cleats so I can dig in.
Yeah, hey, there it is.
I can dig in.
That is.
All right. Well, the number to the station here at KYCN Studios, Church at Victorville, area code 442-284-4282. It's also on the flyer. If you saw the flyer on social media, 442-284-4282. If you have a suggestion or a solution, not just an opinion. If you have an opinion, just post it on Facebook, post it on Twitter. But if you have a suggestion or a real solution, call in. We'd like to hear it. We'd like to put you on the air. We'd like for people out in the high desert and actually around the world. This station is being broadcast. It's an internet station, so it's being broadcast worldwide. We have listeners in Ghana, Africa. We have listeners in Israel. We have listeners all over the world with this station. So if you have an opinion that the world needs to hear, but more specifically the high desert, you can call in now. We'll wait till the phone rings, but we're gonna keep on talking.
Yeah, let's
How about that? How about that, fellas?
That's fine.
We're gonna keep on talking.
Yeah, I'm good.
Let me say I appreciate you guys. I really appreciate what you guys are doing in the community. I appreciate the church at Victorville.
Yes, sir.
Man, if the world only knew the plans that are going to come out of this place.
Yes, sir.
We sit down and have meetings every Saturday and just we discuss not just how can we change the community, but how can we change the world. But starting with the community, you got to start with where you're at. So we're starting with the community, and hopefully the things that we put in place here will become contagious and spread throughout the world, because the world is in a really crazy place right now.
Well, Daryl, I have been networking, as you know, since the year 2000 or before online, and so I have a broad network of men and women around the world, but specifically some brethren in Dimona, Israel, Mitzpe Ramon and Tel Arad, Israel, who have been willing to embrace what I'm doing. A lot of people who are Hebrew Israelite aware are prideful. They have a kind of a exclusivity about them. These men are eclectic. Prince Asiel ben Israel, for example, is unparalleled in terms of his political accomplishments over the year as an ambassador. I mean, he has dealt with heads of state. He has convened key leadership in Black America. He sees beyond that. And so I want to say to those men, I appreciate you that are progressive enough and not narrow-minded, where you think that because I'm dealing in our community and not trying to force people into what I believe, that somehow I'm a coon or a nigger or whatever you guys, I appreciate that. And if you're listening, I love y'all, and give us a call if you got something you want to say. Prince Asiel Jr., my beloved Kohen, Amoniel ben Israel, Amoniel ben Eliezer. What a wonderful elder statesman in this faith, holding down that community in Israel, and calling for divine justice for our people around the world, and being willing to work with me, somebody he's never seen, just in the spirit, realizing that we have that same mission. And so all of us are of the same people, and there are many different ideologies among us. We have to find a way to move beyond that, and I'm convinced that the common denominator is our nationality. And so I appreciate the fact that you're willing to deal with something as controversial as this, and not shy away from that, and let the Most High have his way in terms of that. And so I'm going to do my best to not cross the line where this becomes about proselytizing. This really is about reestablishing community. And I think that the inevitability of identity will emerge in that process. So I don't think I have to, if you're not a Christian, or if you're not a Hebrew, or if you're not, then you're not qualified. I think that is a mistake. But whatever our faith tradition is, we have to understand that the fields are white in the harvest, and our people represent those fields. I mean, everybody is somebody that the Most High is trying to harvest, those who are of goodwill and who call on his name. So what we're doing is really a delicate balance, and it is divine in my judgment. I mean, God Almighty is involved with this and causing this to happen, and I'm just elated and amazed as I'm watching this unfold. But I've just purposed in my heart to I'm not going to politic. I'm not going to just run roughshod over people's feelings, but I'm not going to equivocate. It reminds me of Bill Clinton. Did you sleep with Monica Lewinsky? It's according to what the definition of is. It's like I'm gonna keep it real. Right. I'm not gonna play games.
You can't sugarcoat the truth.
Words. You can't.
You can't sugarcoat the truth. Right.
And at the risk of alienating people, and my gut feeling is that people are ready for the truth. They're tired of business as usual. There was a time when if you say something different, they would, this guy's weird. Right. What are you talking? I think people are open to alternative. Right. Solutions.
All of our attempts at the American dream have failed.
Well said.
They've all failed. I mean, and we're finally at a point.
Post Obama, we had a black president.
Right.
And that did now what?
Right.
Yeah. So we're gonna have to start looking to alternative,
looking a little further higher up than the White House.
Indeed.
Right.
Well said. I agree.
Right. Definitely.
Yes.
Well, Brother YAH, I really appreciate your opinion. We're gonna go ahead and wrap the show up. Looks like we had a couple missed calls. We started. It was a hot topic, so we started like really digging deep into it.
Yes.
So if we missed your calls, we apologize. The show actually was only supposed to last 30 minutes, but it got good. It got good. God is good, and the show got good. So it just kind of continued on. Brother Porter, man, just keep doing you, man. Keep doing you, man. The community, on behalf of the community, man. The community appreciates you.
Thank you.
The community,
and I do too.
Thank you.
Community appreciates.
I see it in your face, man.
You.
I feel it. The comments you've made, man, have been just eye-opening for me. I'm hopeful.
Right.
Same
the truth is real, man. And
absolutely.
And he's a true mentor.
Yes, sir.
He's part of an amazing organization. Like I said, the Ducks are doing some amazing things in the community.
I got a text from them that just warmed my heart. They're like, it's all about family. And,
right. Definitely.
I'm just like, I felt.
And like I said, me actually being on the field with them,
yes,
you
sir.
feel it. You see it.
Right.
I'm a spiritual person. I take my spirit wherever I go. God has given me the discernment of other people's spirits. So I pick up on the spirit wherever I go.
Right,
I don't care if I'm at the mall. I don't care if I'm in Kentucky Fried Chicken. I feel the spirit in buildings. I feel the spirit outside.
Yes,
and the spirit I felt with the Ducks, man. It was an amazing spirit all the way across, man. From the coaches, how the coaches received me just as the photographer and video guy, yesterday.
And I want to say, not to mean to cut you off, just that alone, having somebody outside of our organization in this community come through and be, and they see that.
Right.
So they felt that.
Right.
They felt your spirit.
Right.
So that's big.
Right. Definitely. I appreciate that, man. I appreciate being a part of that, man. And you guys know me. I'm a floater, man.
Absolutely.
Wherever the spirit leads me to go, man, that's where I go. And I just really appreciated being a part of that yesterday, man. I went home and I slept good last night, man. Part of it because it was 105 degrees in Atlanta yesterday, and there was no shade at the stadium. You know what I mean? But aside from a little sunburn, man, it was an amazing situation. I really enjoyed it, man.
Coach Jones and the High Desert Ducks, all of the staff,
definitely,
and board members,
definitely.
For
team moms out there squirting water in the players' mouths and taking them on bathroom breaks, man. It takes a community within the community to keep this thing going, man. Like I said, I love seeing what you guys were doing, man. It was organized from A to Z, man. From names on the uniforms to, like I said, the team moms taking the kids to the everything was just like, it was like clockwork.
And having an actual facility that's up to par for the babies to play at.
Definitely. Atlanta High School. Shout out to Atlanta High School, man, for allowing the Ducks to play there, man, because it felt like little kids playing at a college stadium or something. Those are the experiences we're talking about. giving these kids those type of
experiences,
man.
And we welcome the whole community to come out. You don't have to have a child on the team.
Yeah,
just come out one day if you're not doing Saturday and sit there and support these kids, and you'll get a different view of
that.
Them.
Is so true.
Shout out to the snack bar. Shout out to the Duck Snack Bar.
Good, huh?
I think I had 3 bacon wrapped hot dogs yesterday, 3 Gatorades, and a bag of candy, man. It was, like I said, it was a well run machine, man, from A to Z. I was in line for 30 seconds because it was everything. Like I said, I've been doing this 20 years.
Yeah.
I've seen some organizations that are like a well oiled machine.
And one other thing to the community leaders out there.
Yes.
This is an invite for you guys to come out.
Absolutely.
This is the city council members. I'd love to meet you guys and come on out and speak with us and see what we can do possibly in the future.
We got it in the works. We're working on it.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
See that
We're on the
there.
same page. Yes, sir.
Right there.
Indeed. Oh, my pleasure.
Most
man.
definitely.
My duty. Really.
Most definitely. We're gonna go ahead and wrap this show up, man. It's been a blessing, man. Every time we do this, man, it's just getting better and better. Like I said, we were able to go live this time, so every week, we're trying to make progress with the process.
That's right.
You know what I mean? The phone line piece didn't, I don't know if it was a phone. I didn't hear it ring because we were talking. I know we missed a bunch of calls, but I apologize. Stick with us. We'll knock the kinks out of that. Next week, like I said, next week's topic is what is church. Today kind of led into that. We're tired of seeing the separation, not of church and state, but the separation of churches. How you have churches battling like gangs or like motorcycle clubs or something like that. It's about community. If these churches are really about their purpose, then they would be more about uniting the community than sticking their chests out like their church is better than another church. A lot of churches say, I got a sister church, we got a brother church, but every church should be your sister church. Every church should be your brother church. There should be no line drawn between them. You all should accept the community the same way.
The only way they're going to be able to do that is to acknowledge the absolute necessity of making a cultural reconnection to these covenants.
Right.
The book says, I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. We have to make that connection. This is a Hebrew, in other words, people who come to Christ are adopted into the nation. They become Israelites, whether they're Italian Israelites or German Israelites. It really is about being incorporated into a nation. It's not a religious club.
Right.
And so we have to restore the Hebraic, and there's a grassroots movement even among Euro Gentiles. They call it the Hebrew Roots Movement. So you're hearing them talk about teshuvah instead of repentance. They're talking about the Moedim, the holy days, the feast days. And so the notion of moving past, we're under Christ, we're under grace. We don't keep the law. We don't have to keep, he said, I'll deliver you from the curse of the law, not from the law. So the restoration of that covenant is what's missing. The churches are not going to be able to function properly without that understanding, period. And so that's what I would add to that.
Most definitely.
That's my final
and we'll definitely
controversial statement.
Right, we'll definitely expand on that next week on the What is Church Deacon Daryl show. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys. Hopefully you all were able to ingest some of these right. Some of these topics and conversations that we put out there. Like I said, the problem with the crime in the high desert is bigger than more police. It's bigger than more after school programs. Indeed. It's bigger than another boys club. It's much deeper than that. It's a spiritual battle that people are going through in their homes, in the streets, at work, with their families. It's a spiritual battle that, once they realize that and seek knowledge in that area as opposed to knowledge in a political area, I think some changes we'll see the changes take place from the community up and not from up down to the community, which is the police and the jail system and things of that nature.
I agree.
So I'm gonna leave you guys on that note. Once again, thank you guys for listening to us here at KYCN Studio here in Victorville. Shout out to Atalanto, shout out to Apple Valley, shout out to Hesperia, Barstow, Victorville, and everybody within the sound of my voice. We out of here. Yeah, that went a little long, but
that's all right.
That's okay.
That's okay. Get some points out.
Beautiful. Thank you, man. I'm glad you showed up and just. Man, it's a pleasure. Me too. Indeed. Me too. Yeah.
We need that.